Here we are with the Unit 1.1 quiz review. This will be your first quiz of the year, so first sort of official assessment here of what we know, what we're doing. The topics will be function operations, paragraph transformations, and properties of exponents. First, let's take a look at some function operations. Given f of x equals 3x minus 4 and g of x equals x squared plus 7, we need to find fg. Okay, so first we start there. Fg would be the same as f times g. So we're going to take function f, which is 3x minus 4, and we're going to multiply it by function g, which is x squared plus 7. There's a couple ways to do that. You could use your generic rectangle from CPM, or you could use FOIL, first, outer, inner, last, okay, to be able to do that. Either method is perfectly acceptable. All right, so let's take a look at it this way. We have 3x and minus 4. We have x squared and plus 7. So we end up with 3x cubed minus 4x squared, 21x, and negative 28. Then you would just want to write your response out, simplifying if possible, but in this particular case, we end up with no like terms, just the expression 3x cubed minus 4x squared plus 21x minus 28. Next we have f of g of x. So what this is telling us to do is to actually substitute equation g into equation f. So if I write equation f, and all I did here was leave an empty space where the x would have been or used to be, and in that empty space I'm going to substitute my equation for g, which in this case is x squared plus 7. And then I simplify the best that I can to get my final response, which ends up being 3x squared plus 21, but then minus 4 will end up giving me 17 as my best answer. Finally, I have part C, which is asking for the inverse. This is the symbolically inverse, so g inverse of x. So we're going to take function g, x squared plus 7. Okay, and I'm going to switch my x and y. So I end up with y squared plus 7 equals x. And then I'm going to resolve for y. So that would involve subtracting a 7 from both sides, and then taking the square root of both sides. So my y inverse ends up being the square root of x minus 7. Graph y equals 1 over x minus 3 plus 4. All right, I should have looked ahead here and gave myself some grid, excuse me. Sorry about that. I'll get there. And a coordinate plane to go with it. So here's my coordinate plane. Now obviously in the quiz this will all be provided for you. Now this is a hyperbola family. All right, with a right shift of 3 and an up shift of 4. Now in a hyperbola family, the right shift and the up shift are what determine your asymptotes. So first, the right shift of 3 will give me a VA at 3, and I use a dotted line to symbolize that. And then up 4 would be my HA, my horizontal asymptote. And again, I'm using a dashed line to represent that. And then I sketch in my hyperbola, and again, that's nothing more than a sketch. Your table here and your graphing calculator don't really give you much help, mainly because the TI-83s draw in the asymptotes, and usually the table's filled with lots of decimals. That would be your best response for graphing hyperbola. Obviously in the quiz, any parent family that you've already learned about would be fair game. Quadratics, cubics, hyperbolas, exponentials, etc. Linear, don't count on that. And finally we have simplifying exponents. So it will be a more advanced problem like this, where you have a lot of things going on at one time. First things first, so let's consider the top by itself. And in the top we have parentheses with a square. So the first step there would be to make sure everything in those parentheses gets squared. So I would end up with 2 squared. X squared squared is x to the 4th. and y to the negative first squared is y to the negative second. Now I can bring my denominator back into the game here. And there's a few directions you could go right now, but typically I'll encourage you to take care of your negative exponents first, keeping in mind that a negative exponent will always be the reciprocal of what you have. Therefore, if it's a negative exponent on top, it simply moves to the bottom. If it's a negative exponent on the bottom, it simply moves to the top. And now I'm going to rewrite what I have after those two moves. So the 2 squared is unchanged, 4. I have x cubed, x to the 4th. The y squared is no longer here. The 8 is unchanged. The x to the negative third is no longer here. And then I have y squared. Finally, I want to simplify and reduce where I can. So simplifying on top would give me x to the 7th. So 4x to the 7th. Simplifying on the bottom will give me y to the 3rd. So 8y to the 3rd. And like I said, the final step then would be to reduce if I can. X and y cannot reduce with one another, however 4 and 8 can. That would leave me with 1 over 2 and x to the 7th, y to the 3rd as my best answer. Good luck studying for your quiz, and I'll see you tomorrow.